Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on securing email with digital signatures and encryption. I'm Julia Linsky with the GlobalSign marketing team, and I want to thank you all for joining us today. I'm happy to introduce today's presenter, Evan Wada. Evan is one of our lead sales engineers at GlobalSign and is responsible for implementing advanced PKI solutions for our customers. He is an IT expert with a strong passion for sales and consulting, so please feel free to send any questions you have over to Evan so we can cover them during the Q&A portion after the presentation. If you have questions throughout the presentation, you can submit them using the questions box in your GoToMeeting control panel. We'll keep track and try to answer them all at the end of the webinar. You can also follow us on Twitter at @GlobalSign, where we'll be sharing follow-up materials after today's presentation. Here's a quick look at what Evan will be covering today. First, he'll do a quick overview of the growing risks of using email, like phishing and data loss. Then we'll go into how MIME helps mitigate those risks, how it works, and some examples of digitally signed and encrypted emails. He'll wrap things up with an overview of different certificate deployment options. And now, over to Evan.
Hello all, and thank you for joining. Today we're going to cover the growing risks of using email. Email is an essential part of everyday life. Over 100 billion emails are sent through businesses every day. These 100 billion emails often include sensitive and confidential data, leaving it vulnerable to falling into the wrong hands. In fact, a recent survey found 53% of employees reported receiving unencrypted, risky corporate data via email or email attachments, with 21% actually admitting they were guilty of sending unencrypted sensitive information themselves. This highlights email's potential to be a major vulnerability. One recent study found 22% of companies experience data loss through email each year. It's clear that organizations need a solution that will let their users send sensitive information via email, but without the risk of it being intercepted. Sending emails from a forward sender address, called email spoofing, is one of the most popular methods for carrying out a phishing attack. A hacker will forge an email so it looks like it's coming from a legitimate company, like a bank or financial institution, usually with the intention of tricking the unsuspecting recipient into downloading malware or entering confidential information into a fake website where it can be accessible to the hacker. While these types of attacks are certainly cause for concern, I'm going to focus on attacks that target employees within an organization with the hopes of gaining access to internal systems, receiving payment, or installing malware. This is often referred to as spear phishing. Often with spear phishing, an attacker will impersonate an individual or department from the organization. For example, you may receive an email that appears to be from your IT department saying you need to re-enter your user credentials on a certain site, or one from HR with a new benefits package attached. It can be very difficult to identify these types of messages. Some studies have shown that as many as 94% of employees cannot tell the difference between real and phishing emails. Because of this, as many as 11% end up clicking on attachments in these emails, which actually contains malware. Now, with 11% might not seem that big of a deal. However, a recent study from Intel found that a whopping 95% of these attacks on enterprise networks are the result of successful spear phishing. Clearly, spear phishing is not a threat to be taken lightly. So to recap, given that your employees are more than likely sending sensitive data over email on a daily basis, your company is at growing risk for a spear phishing attack, thus creating a weak entry point for attackers to gain access to sensitive company information. All signs point to the need for stronger email security. This is where MIME comes in. So what is MIME? Let's dig in a bit. MIME is the industry standard for public key encryption for MIME-based data. It offers two key email security functions: one, digital signatures, and two, encryption. We'll go into more details about what each of those mean in the next few slides. One of the main reasons for using MIME is that it's widely accepted and therefore most email clients support it, such as Microsoft Outlook, Thunderbird, Lotus Notes, which is now IBM Notes, Apple Mail, and mobile email, to name a few. These clients are out-of-the-box MIME compliant, whether using a desktop or mobile device. This functionality means emails can be signed and encrypted at the click of a button, so it's incredibly quick, easy to use, and cost-effective. A digital certificate is required to sign and encrypt emails, so I wanted to take a step back and do a quick overview on these first. Digital certificates can be used for a variety of use cases, like SSL or document signing. But for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to cover about how they apply to MIME. A digital certificate is kind of like a virtual passport, a way of proving your identity in online transactions. Just as your local government needs to verify your identity before issuing you a passport, a third-party verification entity known as a certificate authority, like GlobalSign, needs to vet you, the user, before issuing a digital certificate. Since your certificate is unique to you, using it to sign an email is a way for you to prove, yes, it's really me sending this email. Digital certificates contain a public key and a private key. It is computationally infeasible to compute the private key based on the public key. Because of this, public keys can be freely shared, allowing users an easy and convenient method for encrypting, content, and verifying digital signatures. Private keys can be kept secure, ensuring only the owners of the private keys can decrypt content and create digital signatures. We'll dive more into the role of keys next. Let's start with digitally signing emails. When you digitally sign an email, a cryptographic operation binds the public key from your certificate and the contents of the email into one unique fingerprint. Because the digital signature contains your unique public key, recipients know it was actually you who signed it. You can see how this can seriously help mitigate the risk of the types of spear phishing attacks I talked about earlier. If your company standardizes on digital signing all emails, a phishing email sent by an imposter wouldn't have a valid digital signature, which would send red flags to your employees not to trust it. Another benefit to signing emails is that it creates a tamper-evident seal on the email. When a recipient opens the email, part of the process in verifying the digital signature is to compare the contents of the email when the signature was applied to the content at that moment. Even the slightest change to the original content would cause this check to fail, and alerts to be presented to the recipient. All you need to digitally sign an email is your digital certificate and an MIME-capable client. For most email clients, digital signing an email is as simple as clicking a button. Many also offer the option to automatically digitally sign all outgoing messages. Here are examples of how a digitally signed email looks in Outlook. The red ribbon indicates that the email was digitally signed. You can also see the identity of the signer listed under the subject line. The recipient of the email can instantly see that the email was digitally signed and who signed it. He or she can be confident that the email actually came from the correct person and has not been forged, and that the contents of the email have not been changed since it was sent. If the email address on the certificate does not match the email of the sender, it will create an invalid signature and warn the recipient. Clicking the red ribbon verifies the validity of the signature and offers the option to get more details about the certificate that was used to apply the signature. Encrypting an email is like sealing your message in a lockbox, and only the intended recipient has the key. Anyone who intercepts the message, either in transit or where it's stored on the server, will not be able to view the contents. The reason only the intended recipient can access the email is because it is encrypted using their public key. In order to decrypt the contents, you need the corresponding private key, which only they have. Like digitally signing, encrypting your email also creates a tamper-evident seal on the message contents. Part of the description process involves comparing the message contents before and after encryption, and readers would be alerted if the two don't match. It's important to note that encryption alone does not provide any information about the sender of the message, like digitally signing does. So we recommend always including a digital signature when encrypting emails to prove the identity of the sender. Similar to digitally signing an email, encrypting an email is usually as simple as clicking the encryption option in your email client. There is just one key difference, which I just mentioned. You also need your recipient's public key because that is what's used to encrypt the contents. If you already have received a digitally signed email from your recipient, you already have the public key because it's included in the signature. Or if your company is using Active Directory, public keys are often tied to the contact already, so you don't need to obtain it manually. Here's an example of a digitally signed and encrypted email in Outlook. As well as a red ribbon, you can now see a padlock indicating that the email was encrypted. and the contents are not visible to anyone else. Clicking the padlock verifies that the email was encrypted and provides the option to view more details about the digital certificate used to sign and encrypt the email. So now that you see the many benefits of MIME, the next question is, how do I get this for myself and deploy it to my user base? As discussed, in order for you and other users to be able to digitally sign and encrypt emails, you will all need a digital certificate. There are a few options for ordering and issuing certificates. The decision is largely based on your environment and the number of users and your devices you have. You can, of course, purchase certificates individually. This might not be a bad option if you only need a certificate for yourself or one or two other people, but this can lead to difficulty down the road if you are trying to manage multiple certificates. For example, there is a limited to no overview available to detail the number and type of certificates used by an organization. If you order the certificates at different times, they will expire at different times, which could make it difficult to stay on top of renewals. It's important to remember that these certificates do have validity periods, and you have to manage their life cycle. Identity and corporate documents must be submitted for the vetting process. Each time a new certificate is needed, adding time to the initial certificate issuance. It can also make it more difficult to determine budgets if the certificates are purchased ad hoc. If you have multiple users, leveraging an enterprise platform for certificate management has many benefits. Saving money is one, as there are usually discounts for purchasing certificates in bulk quantities. With centralized lifecycle management, all of your certificates are in one place, making it easy to manage the certificate lifecycle, allowing the ability to renew, reissue, and revoke whenever you need to, making it overall easier to handle upcoming certificate expiration. Instant certificate issuance is another key benefit to using a managed service. Unlike individual certificates, where the identity for each certificate needs to be verified each time a certificate order is placed, with enterprise profiles, the organization information is verified once, a concept referred to as pre-vetting. Certificates can then be issued using this pre-vetted company profile whenever needed, delivering certificates in minutes and in some cases even seconds. Having access to all financial and billing information in one place with all order history contained in one account makes it easy to pull invoices, create quotes, and determine future budget requirements. Making implementation easier with automatic enrollment and deployment options is a huge benefit. Many third-party CAs, including GlobalSign, offer APIs and Active Directory integrations that can automate the enrollment, issuance, and renewal processes, significantly reducing the burden on administrators responsible for certificate-based projects. For example, if you are running a Windows environment and using Active Directory, you have the option to automate certificate deployment using our Auto Enrollment Gateway, or AEG for short. AEG connects your Windows environment to our SaaS certificate services so you can leverage all of your existing user information in Active Directory and its native certificate functionality to automatically issue certificates to end users. Using group policy to control which users and machines will be enrolled for specific certificate types, including MIME. The certificates are installed automatically without the need for end user intervention. The certificates can also automatically renew, so you don't have to worry about certificate expiration. MIME can be a great email security option, especially if you're worried about spear phishing attacks and data loss. It's cost-effective, scalable, and best of all, easy for end users. I hope you all enjoyed the presentation, so let's take a look at some questions that have come in.
All right, great. Thanks, Evan. Let's take a look here at some questions that have come in. First things first, people have asked if we're going to be sharing the recording of this presentation. Yes, of course. I'm currently recording this presentation complete with the Q&A, and I'll be sending that to everyone who registered within the next day or so, so keep an eye out in your inbox. That will be coming your way. Moving on here. Does the other person need to get their certificate from the same place I got mine? Evan?
That's a great question. Actually, no. So all certificates are actually based off the same standard. It's referred to as X.509. And this standard allows the use of any MIME capable certificate to be used for this purpose, regardless of the certificate authority it was issued from.
Okay, great. So that is definitely good news. Let's see, moving on here. If I already have a digital certificate, can I start using SMIME?
In most cases, yes. So most client certs issued from CAs include the proper EKUs, which stands for extended key usages, to support SMIME. And that's for both digitally signing and encrypting emails. And if you have any questions on that, you can always email the CA and ask them if their certificate is compatible.
Okay, great. Let's see here. Can I use the same certificate on both my laptop and mobile device? It's a good question. Lots of people are using phones nowadays.
Yes, yes. Yes, and we, as GlobalSign, we offer unlimited licensing. So certificates can, in this case, be exported from the user certificate store on either the mobile device or machine, and it can be imported onto any additional machines or mobile devices that user needs to utilize SMIME on. And this can be done, there's several methods you can do this by. And one of the easier ones is simply emailing, the PFX or the P12 file. And this is protected by a 12-character password to secure the private key.
Okay, great. So kind of on a similar note, will this work on mobile devices?
Yes, it will. Depending on the operating system of that mobile device, but most mobile devices, such as popular ones like iOS, have native mobile apps that out of the box support SMIME. If not natively, in the case of say Android, for example, there are third-party apps available to download right through the Android App Store that do support SMIME.
Okay, great. Let's see, one more question. I currently run an internal CA, use it for signing internal emails, but any that go outside the company trigger security warnings. Do you have a solution for this?
Yes, we do, actually. The great part about working with a public CA such as us is we do have that public trust that you need to send emails to users and show a validated signature. We have many different methods of deploying those publicly trusted certs, as we discussed earlier. You can issue them manually through our enterprise PKI portals, where we have bulk enrollment options. And you can also use our AEG auto enrollment gateway that will tie directly to your Active Directory and issue publicly trusted or private certs if required. We can handle either, and that can work alongside your existing Microsoft CA infrastructure, or we can take it over and replace it completely. Okay,
great. Thanks, Evan. So let's see, a question has come in here asking about, I think, where the certificates are generated. Is it not a risk if private keys leave the person's environment? So can you maybe expand on where is the private key actually being generated? GlobalSign is not, we never have the private key.
Correct.
Okay, so can you maybe expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, so the private key is actually being generated on the device through, and this can be done through various methods. The Microsoft Certificate Store will do it automatically. And basically what happens from there is a CSR, which is a certificate signing request, which contains information that allows us to generate a public key on our side that matches that private key that's on your side. So optimally, you never want the private key to leave the device. You want it to stay on that device where it's generated.
Great. Yeah, so just to reiterate, GlobalSign, we never have access to your private key. That is stays with you and is kept private. So I think that about wraps it up. Let's see, give it another minute in case any extra questions come in, just because we do have a little bit of time here. Okay, let's see. Maybe a couple more. Okay, and let's see, some people may have some questions about their specific environments, so we'll be following up with these people probably individually because they get pretty technical. They're kind of on a case-by-case basis. So we'll be reaching out to you individually afterwards. And to everyone else, I want to thank you again for joining us today. Like I said, keep an eye out for the recording and the slides of this presentation. And if you have any additional questions afterwards, please feel free to contact us, and we will